If a spell is basically prayer that you bring other things into, what is a ritual? What is a ceremony? Why do these other words exist? What are they for? Are they just when you bring other people in, or is there a little bit more to them? So as we're finishing up our introductions here on very basic magic concepts in Druidry 101, I think it's important for us to take a moment and ask ourselves what is a ritual and what is a ceremony, and how they are actually really important for giving our lives meaning, purpose, and direction. Let's talk about ritual and ceremony as we walk together down creation's paths. Hello, everyone. My name is Charlie. I am a Christopagan druid and priest of Brigid.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brian. I'm a Christopagan druid and sous chef to the Dagda.
Today, we're going to be talking about ceremony and ritual. I don't want you to skip this one. I know you're probably thinking to yourself, I'm a solo practitioner, or I don't really do that ceremony stuff. You might want to rethink that. Ceremony and ritual are very important and are more than you might think that they are. So hang out, wait a minute, get in a little bit deeper, and make sure that you're not working off of a broken definition that was forced on you in your childhood when you were made to go to church every Sunday. Because I know I did. But I think that's where a lot of our aversion to ritual and ceremony arises. But before we get into all that, if you haven't already, don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, whatever the terminology happens to be on whatever app you're listening to us on. We do 5 original Christopagan and Druid episodes Monday through Friday every week. And you don't want to miss a thing because we got a lot of really cool stuff coming up. All right, let's just get into it. In her wonderful book, The Power of Ceremony, Restoring the Sacred in Ourselves, Our Families, Our Communities, Linda Neal gives, I think, 2 of the most beautiful definitions of both ceremony and ritual I have ever heard. If I can quote the book real quick, she says, ceremony is a word that has many definitions in academic literature. In this book, ceremony refers to a set of actions performed with a specific intent of connecting participants to the spiritual energy that flows through all creation, or to what some call God. Notice the difference there. Ceremony is about connection. We are connecting ourselves to something. When we do any of our equinox or solstice ceremonies, it's about forging that connection. When we're doing our fire festival, those rituals and ceremonies are about making connection. Now, how does she define ritual? I love this. Ritual, ceremony's unconscious cousin, is often confused with ceremony. Unlike ritual, however, ceremony is a total experience involving our bodies, minds, emotions, and our spirits. Intention is key. When intention is lost, as sometimes happens as ceremony is passed down through the generations, only the outward actions may remain, and then a ceremony can feel empty and may become a meaningless ritual. But when intention is the guiding force in the ceremony, then then we have an opportunity to connect to God at a deeper level, to learn more about our universe and ourselves. And I love this unconscious thing because I've noticed when I go to things and they're called a ritual, very often rituals don't have that conscious connection. They should, but they're so focused on, I have to recite the words exactly the way that they're recited. And all the intention is on saying the words right. The people that are talking, their intention is on saying the words right. That's not really adding to the intention of the work that we're doing, is it? The people that have to bring offerings to the altar, light candles, to blow candles out, pour water, they're very focused on not missing their cues. And in that mess, they're not actually paying attention to what's going on. Now, unlike Linda, I don't believe that ritual has a solely pejorative use. I think that ritual is different from ceremony in that, to me, a ritual is a big spell. Like when you're trying to do something big, that's when we go from just simple spell work to ritual work. That's how I would use the term. But I will say I've been to a lot of ceremonies that did feel like the kind of mindless rituals that she talks about in her book. Now, the operative definitions for us going forward, though, it's a ritual, big spell. If you're just doing a spell by yourself, yeah, it's ritual. You can call it a ritual if you want to. That's fine. That's wonderful. No one's coming after you. There are no police in this unless another inquisition happens, but you never know. But the difference when we're talking about ritual and ceremony is what the intention is. It's a fork in the road. If we're getting together to connect either to each other, to the divine, to the planet, to a place, that is ceremony. If we are trying to rally up all of our energy together to collectively focus it towards a certain goal or intention, that is ritual. And I think those are good operating ways to understand this. I don't think you can perform a ritual alone. Ooh, you want to challenge me?
Yeah, I was hesitating for a minute 'cause I was like, well,
Okay,
I
let's see.
mean,
Let me back that up. When I'm doing when I'm, even if I am the only human in the space, a ritual requires and necessitates me calling in all of my guardians, all of my guides to do the work with me. Often I might even have a servitor or two that I call in to work in the work with me. I'm calling the angels of the four quarters. I am calling in the animals of the four directions. I'm calling in the winds. I'm not doing that alone. When I do a spell, I'm not invoking four archangels and four spirit animals and every guardian and guide that I've had throughout my life. I'm not doing that in spell work, because you can do spell work by yourself. Sometimes you call in your guides and guardians and everything else in your spell work. You can't do a ritual alone. That doesn't mean there have to be other human persons there.
I can see that. Yeah, I completely agree with that too. Where okay, so ritual is you plus
I think
others.
I think all ritual and ceremony is group work.
I do like differentiation between ceremony and ritual, whereas ceremony, that intention is the connection into the community involved in the ceremony and the connection to something greater as well. I like that.
For any Catholics who don't understand this difference, if you are performing the Mass on Sunday, same words in the Mass, all the prayers are the same. This is a ceremony. You're
Yeah.
gathered together to connect to God through the Eucharist and to connect to the community that is there, right?
Yep.
Somebody's getting married. Have you ever been to a Catholic wedding? You perform a Mass as a ritual to invoke the very real presence of Jesus into the ceremony, where only the bride and the groom, only those getting married, partake of the bread and the wine as part of their uniting together, so that Jesus is there in them as they take their vows to each other. You're now performing the exact same words, the exact ritual, but it's now not a ceremony anymore. We're just
Yeah.
here.
You're right, because the intent is making magic. You're making union between these two individuals.
Correct. Correct. We're uniting these people. Same exact ritual. If you don't understand those subtleties, it's okay. So we do a church service and then they say their vows and then they go home. Like it's a little bit more than that. It's not this, it's the same words, but it's not the same service. And that's where you start understanding the difference between these two ideas of ceremony and ritual. That's why in the Catholic Church, anytime you need to work magic, you say mass. And if you're not saying mass, you're bringing out consecrated hosts that were consecrated during a mass, because that is how you make this focus that is the real and corporeal presence of Christ in the community. When you go to a Catholic church to pray, you pray towards the altar. Why? Not because it's an altar, but because in the high altar, there is a box, and in that box are consecrated hosts that have been consecrated at previous church services. The real presence of Jesus that was consecrated there is in those hosts. They've been enlivened with the magic and they're there. That's what you're praying towards. It's not the statues. It's not the altar. It's not the candles. It's not because this is the holy place. That's why you kneel. You're kneeling towards that real presence that is literally in the ark at the altar. And that's when you start understanding the intention in these things, right? You may be in there doing your prayer or spell work, however you want to think about it, because as we've talked about a lot, there's a fuzzy line between a prayer and a spell, especially if you're going to a place and lighting a candle. And sorry,
Yeah.
if you're going to a place, you're lighting a candle and you're genuflecting and crossing yourself. Guess what? You just did a ritual as part of your prayer. It's now a spell. Anyway,
Wish plus focused intent plus,
and of a deity plus other
yeah.
ingredients, other symbolic
Now
ingredients.
you're using tools and additives.
Yep.
And once you've done that, you went from prayer to spell work.
It's a spell now.
Yeah. And this is also where rituals and ceremony happen all the time. Like I think back
Yeah.
to in the States, as a child, we did the Pledge of Allegiance in schools. That is a ceremony. It's a ceremony with the intent to connect us to the other kids in the classroom, the teacher, and to connect all of us into the state itself.
I didn't.
This is where
My,
why not saying the pledge becomes this whole weird thing in a lot of people where they suddenly have weird feels about it. Yeah, you have somebody who is now not wanting to participate in a ceremony of connecting oneself to the state.
when I was in school, I did not say the Pledge of Allegiance in class because it was a violation of my faith. I was taught very clearly that we vow our allegiance to no one but God and Jesus. I cannot pledge myself to a piece of fabric or to a country. I was raised in a very early form of Christian nationalism that hadn't completely wedded with American nationalism yet. And so I did not grow up saying the Pledge of Allegiance in school. I had to sit there while everyone else around me stood, put their hands on their heart, and said it. They didn't make me leave the room or anything because I did go to public school for a lot of my education. I did go to Baptist private school for some of it, but we didn't say the pledge because that would be swearing to an idol. You don't swear. Jesus said, let your yes be yes and let your no be no. You don't swear. So I didn't grow up with that ritual. That's not part of my experience. And you can see how these different traditions see this differently, right? These rituals have power. This is why some people are upset when they see a Christmas tree in public, when they don't practice Christianity. And other people who do not practice Christianity are fine with it. It's what does that ritual object mean to them? And this is where, when doing ritual and ceremony, all of these things really matter in bringing it all together, because the larger the group that you're in, the more simplified the service has to be. When Brian and I do ceremony and ritual together, and it's just the two of us, which is how it has been on most holidays and stuff like that, we know each other very well. We know which saints are okay to invoke. We know what statues to get out, what decorations to put up. We don't have to worry about, is anybody going to be upset that we have a Santa Claus right next to our creche? We don't have to worry about that, right? But if you start bringing more people in, you have to think about, what is the symbolism of having that Santa Claus next to the creche? Some people are going to be offended by that, and for different reasons. It's not always the reasons that probably immediately spring to your mind. And this is where spell work really is very solitary work. Like I said, you can do spell work with others. That is a thing that you can do. But I really think that we need to bear in mind that once you bring a second human incarnate person into your spell work, you're doing ritual work, because now there is a level of negotiation that has to happen. Because if we're doing an invocation of the archangel, maybe this isn't the best place to include your prayer to Lilith.
Yeah, because this is where, to put it in the Druidcraft terms, each additive that you're adding in to the ritual, you have to realize what intent is that evoking in all the participants involved. Like you're saying with the Santa Claus, some see Santa Claus and they evoke that intent of charity, of giving and joy. Some see Santa Claus and they see the intent of and they see it evokes the intent in them of the commercialization and selling out, greed, almost the exact opposite. And so that's where you have to be very mindful. If you have two people in a ritual and they both see Santa Claus in complete opposites, everything's going to be screwed up intention wise.
Yeah.
You're better off leaving him out, because that's an additive that's going to corrupt I keep wanting to say dish. Sorry. It's a chef in me.
Dish, ritual, spell.
Rituals. That's why it's all the cauldron of plenty.
So most of the stuff that we've already talked about in how to do spell work, all of that is true when it comes to doing ritual work. There really isn't much more that you can bring in here. Yeah, you might actually be building a larger space because more people are going to be involved. You might want to think more about what is going to be on the floor. I know a lot of groups that I've been involved with in the past actually had special floors that we bought. So we had different kinds of tiles that we would lay out for certain things because it would be better symbolically if there were a checkerboard pattern on the floor or if there were this pattern on the floor. So we would basically buy tiles and lay them out and have to be very careful walking on them because we didn't grout them in because we changed the floor regularly and having to grout a tile out. So, you put them in good enough, yeah, it slip too much. Or we
You
would
want to
buy like
exercise mindfulness.
yeah. Or you'd buy a patch of linoleum that had the pattern on it that you were looking for or something, or get a rug that had the pattern on it that you were looking for to be on the ground. You're thinking much more of the space because everything now has to work in concert to try to bring people in to the actual ritual itself. And that means explaining to people, like when we did our prosperity spell this year for Lunasa, we had a friend over at the house when we were doing it. And we explained, here's what we're going to be doing. If you want to participate, you can. If you don't want to participate, that's fine. Here's what this means. Here's what that means. Here's why we do this. Here's why we're doing that. And it was a very quick, we went out to the deck where we perform a lot of our rituals, especially our outside ones, because there are mosquitoes around here and fleas and ticks and all kinds of things. So we don't get into the yard as often, but we still want to be outside. We went out, we did it, and then we went back inside. But we had to make sure that to explain, because that's something I think a lot of rituals neglect. And I think one of the reasons why like Christian churches don't do that, to be honest with you, why did Christian churches not do well? New people showing up have no idea why any of this stuff's happening. Why are you singing hymns? Why are you singing praise choruses instead of hymns? Why are you doing this bread and wine thing? Why are you passing around a tray to get money? Why should anybody give you money? What are you doing with that money? Who are the people on stage? Why should I care about them? No one's explaining any of this to them. You're expected to know through cultural osmosis. And by the way, the answers to those questions are different if you're at a Pentecostal meeting or a Catholic church. So you can't just say that you should know, right? So making sure that if we're bringing in people, making sure that they're all on the same level, making sure that we're all understanding this is why we're getting together today. This is why today is the day we're doing this. This is what we're doing, why we're doing it. Because in all of our working, if we want it to actually be a working, as we keep going back to this term intention, when you're doing ritual and ceremony work, you're bringing in more people. That gives you the ability to have a much more powerful effect. But that's only if we're all bringing the same intent into the ceremony. Now, if everybody's doing their own kind of thing, that doesn't really matter that much. If you're doing a ritual where we're getting rid of our regrets, which I've done several of these rituals in the past, they're beautiful. You start a bonfire and everybody writes down their regrets on paper. You do a little ritual to charge the fire and basically pronounce the ceremony open. We would often do this, some beltings that I used to go to. And then the fire is lit, the fire is charged. Now everybody go off and have fun. And then on your own time, you would write your regret, what you wanted to give away to the fire to release and let go of, and go and just put it in the fire on your own time, right? That's a ceremony that connected us together. That is a ritual that charged this atmosphere with this intention of we're leaving our regrets behind. We're entering this new energy of the summer. We're entering this new energy fully into the powers of life. And we're leaving all of that dead stuff behind, right? I've also done these at Samhain, by the way. I think you do it at both. It works very well. Maybe even do it twice a year because given the way our country's going, I think we're piling up regret. I still need more fires to burn them away. But not everyone has to be on the same page at the exact same moment there, right? That intention of getting together, that connecting ceremonial bit is important. Not everybody puts stuff in the fire, and you never knew who all put stuff in the fire because the fire just burned and the drummers were there, the dancers were there, and they were just entertaining all night. And everybody else just milled around. And when you felt it was time, you wrote your regrets, so you threw them in the fire. There's a lot of ways to organize ceremony. There's a lot of ways to organize ritual. And then, by the way, at the end of the night, the master of ceremonies, as we called them, because we were very formal, would come in and say the final prayers and make sure that the fire was out. Fire safety.
And also the other thing with ceremony and ritual is you are weaving yourself into and connecting in with the other participants.
Yep.
And at closing, it's important to remember to close that off to an extent. It would be
Look,
weird to do a ceremony to connect yourself into a community and then sever yourself from the community at the end of every ceremony, because that's what's the point of the ceremony. But you need to close up those energies. That needs to be concluded, at least.
that's the power of initiation and why initiations are important. My initiation into Druidry connected me into various traditions because I have done a couple different Druidic initiations in my life. And two of them meant the most to me. And one was the Peregrine Druid initiation that you can find in the book Druid Magic. Great book, wonderful book. Love that book. Druid Magic, or the Practice of Celtic Wisdom by Maya Sutton and Nicholas Mann. Highly recommend this book if you're interested in Druidry. One of, I think, the best books on Druidry because it takes you through the lore and helps you to ask the question, what does Druidry mean to you? And help you reconstruct your own Druidry from the Legendarium. And that meant a lot to me because I had gone through all of this work and really questioned what it meant to be a Druid for myself. The other one was the Obad initiation, because I don't know why, but I really did feel connected to a community, right? The one initiation helped me feel connected to the movement. There was something about the Obad initiation that helped me feel connected to the community. And when you actually look at the structure of these rituals, one is a ceremony and one is a ritual. Oh, wow. Because in the Peregrine one, you're literally connecting yourself not just into the lineage, but into the power and into the responsibilities that come with practicing Druidry. So it is really a ritual of kind of taking the mantle on. And it's almost more of a self-ordination that they have in that book, which is very much a ritual work. But they really do help me feel connected to the tradition. Like I still feel connected to the Golden Dawn tradition, even though I did my Golden Dawn initiations, 30 years ago? I went through all my Golden Dawn initiations and I still feel connected to the Golden Dawn. I still feel connected to that entire tradition, even though I don't really practice that way anymore. I really am not part of that tradition anymore. I still feel that connection there. It's still a part of me. That's what good ceremony does. And why honestly, I think there are people that are addicted to initiation. You need to be careful about having that kind of, I'm going to go through a different initiation every week or month or whatever, because that's a lot. Because you really are tying yourself in. And a good initiatory tradition, you will feel this thread between you and them. Be mindful of how you're building that up, especially if you're doing a ceremony to build a coven or something, or a grove or something like that. Are these the people that you want to be connecting with? Are these people really the people in your coven? The people that are in my coven, oh yeah, I'm ride or die for all of them. One of them started picking on a friend of mine's daughter. The moment I heard that, I was like, do I need to go and yell at a parent? I will go and we can make a trip. It's going to be a road trip, but I'll make a trip. Like, does our girl need me? Do I need to show up? Like first instinct, right? Because that's how we're connected, right? This is the community that I am in. And that's what you're building through ceremony. You're picking the symbols that are who you are.
This is why sports fans are the way they are, because they go through regularly a ceremony connecting themselves in with others and then with the team that they're part of.
Every time I hear, it's usually a dude bro, say something about how they can't believe that I practice magic or something like that, I laugh and I'm just like, oh yeah. And all of those things to start naming, because usually I know the specifics that they do for various playoffs and whatnot.
Yeah, they're complicated ritual to usually for changing magic so that they can evoke a score, so they can evoke a game result.
How many stores did you go to get all the beans for your 5 bean dip? Because the team won't win unless you have the 5 bean dip. And it has to be on a perfect chip. And how bad does it hurt the team if the chip breaks in the dip? How bad is it going to hurt the team? I practice. You're practicing divination with a bowl of bean dip, but I'm weird for practicing divination. You're practicing divination too. That's what I'm trying to get us to understand. When we use these more mundane examples, it's not to cheapen or lessen magic. It's to try to open people's eyes to realize we are all magical beings. We are all ritual practitioners. We have never stopped living in a world of enchantment. We just decided to pretend and play a game that it's not happening, that going to a concert isn't a ritual ceremony. It is. You're there to join in community with a couple thousand of your best friends to sing a bunch of songs together and then to go home. It is a ceremony. That's what you're doing with whether it's your music, sports. I have never seen religious devotion. And remember, I was raised in an evangelical Christian nationalist cult. I have never seen fanatic devotion like I have for certain video games, anime, and it's ritualized as well. All right. So I hope that this has meant something to you. I hope that this has helped you out. I hope that you've seen that ritual is something that we're all doing. If this is, just let us know in the comments, what rituals and ceremonies do you regularly participate in? If you're listening to us on YouTube or Spotify, you can leave a comment right there. If you're listening to us anywhere else, even if they say you can leave a comment, they don't let us know. So you can leave a comment there anyway, because engagement is magic. Because engagement is magic. And then head on over to creation.com and click on chat, and you can leave a comment there, and we'll see it, and we'll be able to get back to you. While you're there, if you have a few dollars you can pass our way, we offer monthly and annual memberships. You can also support us on Patreon and Ko-fi. I am CE Dorset on both, or you can support us via the Cash App hashtag Creations Paths. Thank you to everybody who does that. It really does mean the world to us. If you don't have any money right now, or you're not sure that we're the kind of people that you want to give your hard-earned treasure to, that's perfectly all right. But if we've ever done anything that's helped you out or you think would help somebody else out, please share that episode to them. That helps us out more than you. And before we go, as we're heading out, oh, Blessed Mother Mary, Queen of all hearts, who helps us to learn and see the various ways that we are all connected one to another, and who guides us in the great celestial symphony. Help us to find the rituals and the ceremonies that will guide us and keep us, and help us to always be working for a better world and to find our way home. Amen.
Amen.